Hello and welcome to Tomorrow Today. Here's what's coming up. Why a friendly robot isn't always the best robot. Why bacteria are essential to our health. And what the future of high-tech elevators will bring. But first, a familiar scene. A busy airport with throngs of passengers looking for their gates. The terminal is huge and confusing. Everyone's in a hurry, hoping not to miss their plane. But never fear, help is on the way. Someone or something who will guide you to your gate.
It's the start of the workday at Freiburg University. Spencer's system has been switched on. His battery is fully charged. This social robot is ready for action. He's equipped with lasers, cameras, and sensors so that he can detect people, move among them, and even interact with them. The researchers are testing his skills in the university entranceway.
There are quite a lot of students here going in and out of the halls. It's an ideal environment for testing how he navigates around groups.
Spencer compares the information received by his sensors with a stored map of the university building, so he doesn't get lost. Spencer is the first robot that can move among crowds in such an open environment. Recently, he was sent to Amsterdam's airport. There, his skills were put to the test. Spencer had to help passengers find their gate as quickly as possible, without bumping into anything, or anyone. He passed with flying colors and showed he can be very polite, too. The Spencer project in Freiburg brings together university and industry partners from across Europe. If robots can be programmed to move around in crowds of people, airports are just one of the places where they'll be used.
We've developed principles that can be applied to all robots that work with people, like robots in homes, which are still in the form of vacuum cleaners, or robots in a factory working side by side with humans, and driverless cars. This research will help robots better understand the people around them and respond to them more effectively.
Before taking Spencer to Amsterdam, the team spent a lot of time observing human behavior there. How fast do people walk? Where do they stop? How often do they suddenly change direction? All crucial information for Spencer.
What was special about the task at the airport is that he had to bring passengers in transit to their departure gate as quickly as possible. It's impossible to be polite and greet everyone in a friendly way. Sometimes he has to hurry people along. We found out that he's much more efficient if he doesn't follow certain social rules than if he's always super friendly. So we confirmed what we already knew from humans. We're more likely to ignore social rules when we're in a hurry.
Spencer can detect whether people are alone or in a group and choose his direction accordingly. His sensors detect motion around him, and he can catalog it according to spatial proximity, speed, posture, or which direction a person is facing. That helps him reach his destination quickly and safely. Spencer also has social awareness, so he won't just barge through a group of people with his 250 kilos. That's also crucial for real-world use.
We're basically waiting for some bold partners who will plunge in. There's already been some interest from Hong Kong, Japan, different parts of Europe, from people who want this robot. So now we'll see how it goes.
It could be another 5 years before Spencer is allowed to roam freely around airports, train stations, and shopping malls. But his social awareness skills are already so advanced that he's allowed to hang out with the students at Freiburg. That's one of the benefits of good manners.
Excuse me.
When it comes to food and eating habits, there's a huge amount of cultural diversity. Food isn't just a source of energy, it's also linked to lifestyles, tradition, and even social status. And our diet also has a major impact on our health. In many ways, we are what we eat. To find out more, one researcher headed to Eastern Africa.
A high plateau in northern Tanzania is home to the Hadza, one of the few hunter-gatherer communities left in the world. For generations, Hadza men have hunted with bow and arrow. The children remain with the women, who gather wild vegetables, roots, and fruit. The fruit is eaten raw, or it's turned into porridge. Amanda Henry, a biologist from the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, is interested in the Hadza's traditional diet, and especially its effects on health.
Many of the diseases of Western society, things like obesity and diabetes, are fairly strongly associated with particular gut microbiota configurations and in specifically a loss of diversity in the gut microbiota. We don't tend to see things like obesity or diabetes among the Hadza.
2 years ago, Dr. Henry visited the Hadza with a research team. Their mission doesn't sound very appetizing. They wanted to examine their host's intestinal bacteria.
I can only imagine that the Hadza must have thought we were weird when we were asking for their poo. But they were very willing to participate, and they're used to researchers coming and asking for strange things, perhaps, because they're one of the last foraging or hunter-gatherer populations in the world. We really go to them quite often to learn more about what a foraging lifestyle means.
Back in Leipzig, the researchers studied the stool samples, and they found many unusual microbes. To better understand the differences, the team also analyzed stool samples from Europeans.
We found that, perhaps not surprisingly, the Hadza gut microbiota is quite different from that of our Western control sample. It was also very different from any other group that had been studied so far.
The gut bacteria of the Hadza is not only different from that of Europeans, it's also much more diverse. The Hadza spend about 2 hours a day obtaining food. Their main staple is the fruit of the baobab tree. But they also eat leaves and berries. Even Hadza children help gather food. They dig tubers out of the ground. Meat makes up only about 20% of their diet. But the researchers in Leipzig also found differences between the intestinal bacteria of Hadza men and Hadza women. That can be explained by the Hadza's division of labor by gender. As gatherers, the women eat more roots and fruit, while the men, as hunters, eat more meat. So it seems that our gut bacteria vary according to the lifestyles and diets of their hosts. Wherever people live, and whatever they eat, their gut microbiome adapts. But which gut bacteria are essential for different diets and lifestyles? In researching this question, Dr. Henry made a surprising find.
One bacterial type called bifidobacteria that's quite common in Western gut microbiota and that has been studied quite well, and we know it's considered a healthy bacteria. The Hadza have none of it whatsoever. It's not present at all in their gut microbiota.
Bifidobacteria help digest dairy products and grain, but the Hadza don't eat these foods. Apparently, specific bacteria perform specific tasks. There are no good or bad bacteria. It all depends on the environment we live in. And what do these results mean for medical researchers?
We don't know yet if it's possible to therapeutically, let's say, change our gut microbiota to avoid some of these Western diseases of affluence. But we're quite far away from, let's say, prescribing certain bacteria. I think what we do see, though, is that because of the strong relationship between diet and microbiota communities, that we can change diet to be a more healthy diet, which leads to a more healthy gut microbiota, which can help protect from these diseases that we were talking about.
The diet of the Hadza is rich in dietary fiber from plants, which are basic food for the gut flora. The bacteria help digest fiber into short-chain fatty acids, which help maintain the intestinal mucous membrane.
Even simple processing like juicing completely removes the fiber of the food. So if you have a choice between orange juice and an orange, the orange has much more fiber.
Research on the gut microbiome is still in its infancy, but the Hadza's way of life can teach us a lot about the interaction between diet and intestinal bacteria.
Most of us see bacteria as the enemy. We scrub and sterilize, wipe and wash, hoping to make everything hygienic. We use chemical cleaning products, trying to kill every germ we can get our hands on. But in fact, bacteria are essential to our very survival.
A baby spends 40 weeks protected in its mother's womb. Here, it's safe in a sterile space. But the world in which its parents live is quite different. Right now, the baby can enjoy the time in utero. It's a paradise that's absolutely bacteria-free. But soon, its mother's waters will break, and a human being will be born. Born into a world that is full of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Everywhere we go, we're surrounded by countless germs. Helena and Waldemar Klippert are expecting their first child. Their greatest desire is about to be fulfilled. The baby could come any time now, but Mom is still quite relaxed.
The contractions that I've had so far were painful, but I think there's worse to come.
Waldemar Klippert is less relaxed. He's worried about his wife and unborn son.
I'm thinking of so many things. What will the birth be like? Good health is the one thing you can't buy.
They're both hoping for a natural birth, although nearly 1 in 3 babies are born by cesarean section in Germany. In terms of bacteria, doctors say a vaginal birth is definitely the better choice.
For the microbiome, it's good if the baby comes into contact with the mother's good bacteria as early as possible, even during birth. With children born by cesarean, we notice a higher incidence of allergies, which start in childhood, and more problems with lung infections and respiratory difficulties.
The contractions are becoming more regular. Helena's waters have broken. It's time for the baby to be born. The birth will be the baby's first contact with the world of microbes. With every contraction, the mother pushes the baby a few centimeters through the birth canal, which is teeming with microorganisms. The baby comes into contact with lactic acid bacteria in the vagina. The mother passes on the bacteria to her child during birth, bacteria that can protect the baby from dangerous viruses. In just a little more than an hour, it's over. Baby Alexander has been born. It's the start of an invasion. Every wrinkle, every opening in Alexander's tiny body is now an irresistible magnet for billions of bacteria and other microbes. They also enter the body with every breath. The bacteria on the mother's skin and bacteria in the air come to colonize Alexander. Most of these microbes will help him throughout his life. They fend off pathogens. They help digest his food. They become part and parcel of his body's own ecosystem. Alexander is breastfed for the first time. Breastfeeding doesn't only strengthen the bond between mother and child. Breast milk also contains over 700 different types of bacteria. They promote healthy intestinal flora and strengthen the development of the baby's immune system. The next day, pediatrician Josef Dechend gives Alexander a health check. He's familiar with both the positive bacteria and the negative ones that cause sickness.
People often associate bacteria with something negative because they know that bacteria can make them sick. And that's true if the bacteria occur in the wrong places, like the lungs, for example. That leads to a lung infection. Or if it's the kidneys, you get a kidney infection.
But baby Alexander is perfectly healthy. And the next bacterial onslaught already awaits. Grandma and Grandpa have come for their first visit, bringing plenty of new germs and bacteria with them. Every time they touch his skin, Alexander takes on new microbes. The more his body comes in contact with them, the more his immune system will be trained and strengthened. The microbes will work with his immune system, ensuring their own survival and Alexander's. The birth was only his first encounter with microbes, and by no means the last. In fact, it's the start of a lifelong symbiosis from which both sides benefit.
We asked our viewers to weigh in. Are you scared of bacteria? Aldwin San Diego says no, but also yes when it comes to bacteria that cause disease. And what about washing your hands with disinfectants? Aldwin says he uses antibacterial soap, or 70% ethanol or isopropanol when soap and water aren't available. Yatish Yatish agrees hygiene is important, but at home they wash with natural disinfectants to avoid infection. Now it's time for our viewer question. This week it comes from Nigeria. One of our fans is curious about a weather phenomenon that's been making headlines these past months. Let's find out more.
Edward Hong of Yola wants to know, why is El Niño at its worst at Christmas time? Every few years, temperatures in the equatorial Pacific are warmer than usual. Researchers call this El Niño. Fish die, there are algae blooms, and other marine life is also affected. El Niño brings storms, floods, and torrential rains to South America, and heat, drought, and poor harvests to Southeast Asia. Over the past months, El Niño was exceptionally severe. 60 million people suffered under its effects. But now this year's El Niño is officially over. Normally, at the end of the year, trade winds drive warm water from South America to Asia, like a hairdryer pushing a wave. But when El Niño comes, the trade winds die down, and the water flows back eastward. Instead of monsoons in Asia, there are heavy storms in South America. El Niño develops at irregular intervals. Scientists still can't predict when the next one will come. We still don't really know what causes El Niño, but we do know that when it comes, it's usually over Christmas time. That's where its name comes from. El Niño is Spanish for the boy, meaning the Christ child. Fishermen in Peru coined the term. There's no way to prevent El Niño. People can only hope that the heavens will be merciful.
Send in your question to dw.com/science. If we answer it on the show, you'll get our Einsteinchen DVD, presenting Albert Einstein's famous theories simply and enjoyably.
The most important thing is to never stop asking questions.
Tall, taller, and tallest. Skyscrapers are a familiar sight in cities around the world. But very tall buildings also need high-tech elevators. Elevators that can carry thousands of people up and down at high speeds safely and efficiently. For researchers and engineers, it's a tall order.
Right now, Thomas Earl has to use the construction elevator. But in a few months, ThyssenKrupp's futuristic test tower in the southern German town of Rottweil will be complete. Then the project manager will have his new office, 250 meters up. And high-tech elevator cars will move through the shafts at speeds of up to 65 kilometers an hour. The engineers want to know how the elevators respond when a skyscraper sways in a storm. They're also examining how the rapid altitude change will affect passengers. At a research center near Stuttgart, Thomas Earl is testing a pressure equalizing system, similar to those used in airplanes.
We seal the elevator cabin so that it's airtight, and then we attach pressure equalizer pumps or ventilators to the chamber's roof. They can regulate the pressure in the cabin.
But the researchers also have high hopes for a new cable-free technology. Here, the elevator moves on rails, driven by linear motors. The technology is similar to that used in magnetic levitation trains. It means that several elevators can operate in a single shaft and move sideways, too. But most of the test shafts in the tower are for standard elevators that run on cables. So a lot of research is still focusing on how to ensure these elevators are safe. The Institute of Mechanical Handling and Logistics at the University of Stuttgart is a leader in this field. Karl-Heinz Weking and his team use a magnetic sensor to detect damage within the cable that's invisible from the outside. The device can be used to examine cables on site, and results can be analyzed on a computer. 90% of all elevator cables in the world are made of steel, but this means the cables are very heavy, so they can't be used in elevator shafts that are higher than 650 meters. In the future, cables will be made of synthetic fibers.
This cable weighs about a third less per meter than a steel cable. Its lifespan is also 5 to 6 times longer than that of a steel cable. In some tests, it was even 30 times longer.
The researchers have another goal. They would like to develop fire-resistant cables so an elevator can be used to escape a fire zone. But this will require a lot more research. Elevators have been around for more than 150 years now. But they've gotten quite a bit more high-tech since paternosters were transporting passengers up and down.
So where are the world's tallest buildings? Let's take a look. In 5th place, Taipei 101 in Taipei at 509 meters. In 4th, New York's One World Trade Center at 541 meters. Number 3, Makkah Clock Royal Tower in Mecca, 601 meters. The runner-up is Shanghai Tower in Shanghai at 632 meters. And the top spot goes to the Burj Khalifa in Dubai at a towering 828 meters. That's all for today. Next time we take a look at an innovative concrete that can deliver energy. Coated with just a few layers of ordinary materials, this concrete comes with built-in solar cells. Will this be the wave of the future? Join us next time on Tomorrow Today. Goodbye and see you soon.